This is number 2 of some beginner laser projects. I'm going to take you through step by step if you're new to using a laser. If you're not new to it, some of this might be a little boring because I'm going to go into great detail on this and how to get everything set up. So we're going to get going on this coming up. I'm Roger, welcome to the shop, and what I'm going to be showing you how to make here today are some cutout Christmas ornaments like this. And they are going to be made out of 2mm plywood, which if you have a Dollar Tree close by, they have different shapes. You can buy them. We're going to be using the circle shape. This hanging sign comes with a string attached, which we'll be cutting off. This is 11.75 inches in diameter, and you'll be able to get 6 ornaments on it, as you'll see when I lay it out with the computer in Lightburn. But there's something you need to do first. Get a couple of these, or maybe, yeah, get a couple of them anyway, because you're going to need one to do a little bit of experimenting on. I'm going to give you a setting here for the cutting, but plywood can vary. It can be very fickle from one batch to the next. That's why I want to show you what you need to do. Okay, one of the things you're going to need to do here first is just a little bit of a cut test. So get over here and grab you a square. Make a little square here, any size. Then come back up here with a little arrow. We're going to make this 0.5 each direction. So unlock that little padlock, that 0.5. I'm working in inches. If you're working in millimeters, you can adapt. 0.5. So there's our 1/2 inch square. I'll blow this up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Right click on that and copy, and right click on that and paste. Kind of put them next to each other. And we're going to do one more. Okay, now each one of these is going to be a little different. This first one here we're going to do is, as you can see over here, 250 millimeters per minute, 80% power. One pass. I'm going to go over here to this one, and we're going to assign that to something here, just a random line, and I'm going to make this one 300 millimeters per minute at 80% power. And we're going to go over here, and I'll just grab another one here at random, and we are going to make that one 350 millimeters per minute at 80% power. And I'm working from absolute coordinates here. If you're working with a laser that does not have limit switches, it's best to work from what they call current position. You would, and I'm working from center, so you would position your laser at the center where those squares would be. So I am going to go back to my absolute coordinates here. I'm on the xTool D1. And I need to highlight this. There's this little cross. Move to page center, because that's where I'm going to be working from. There's the center of my workspace there. So I've got a little piece of wood laid on the laser here, and I'm going to frame that, and then we're going to cut these out. I got a scrap of plywood in here. As you can see, I've already cut some other ornaments out of it. So I'm going to frame this here. Make sure I'm not in a vacant area. And I'm going to start it. We'll let that cut out. Each one of these is one pass. 250 millimeters per minute, 300 millimeters per minute, and 350 millimeters per minute, all at 80% power. And as you can see, the first one there I saw already dropped out, So the 250 millimeters per minute will work perfect for that. The 300 millimeter per minute looks like it didn't quite cut all the way through. This is why you need to do these tests. I already know what I'm going to use for a setting, but I just wanted to show you here. So I'm going to send the laser back home. Get it out of my way here. So as I pick this up, as you can see, the 250 millimeter per minute cut through, dropped out just fine. The 300 millimeter per minute, well, if I messed with it, I could get that out of there. But there's always a chance that you can get a piece of grain or a fiber that will not release, and then you'll end up with something that looks like this over here at 350. But you need to do a test on your own piece of wood, because as I said, this stuff varies from batch to batch. In fact, you can see here I had to do a little bit of knife work trimming to get the top of that ornament out of there, even though all the rest of them cut fine. Okay, so what do we need to do for prep? Well, if you're using around any sign, they come with strings attached, as I say. You'll need to take that string off of there for one thing, because that'll throw your thing way out of level. And you can always use something else to hang it up later. You'll need to measure your piece. Of course, this is 11.75. I've already measured this. If you're using a different shape, you'll have to measure that and work your tool path out accordingly and figure out what you can fit on that piece. I've been to several different Dollar Tree stores. Most of them have these, but some of them don't. They have other shapes. For example, like what I cut the little test squares out of, looks like a big ornament. So now what you need to do is get this sanded to 220, make it nice and smooth, and do that on both sides. Also try to pick one that's flat and not all warped and wonky. And wonky is a technical term, so keep that in mind. Once you've got everything prepped and sanded, you can get it laid out on your laser. Now here I'm using the xTool D1. It's a 10-watt laser. The settings I'm using at 250 millimeters per minute at 80% power is for a 10-watt laser. I'll be doing some videos farther down the road here on using a 5-watt laser, because it is not half the time and twice the power, and it's not linear. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to do some burn tests there as well. Your settings and speeds will be a little bit different. If you have a honeycomb board, that's great, because it reduces and almost eliminates any scorching on the backside. If you do not have a honeycomb, make sure you have a metal plate, a protective sheet, or something underneath. And by sheet, I mean sheet metal, not a sheet. And don't do it on the wife's dining room table, or you may end up with knots on your head. Make sure it's on a surface that if it gets spoiled, it doesn't hurt anything. If you have air assist, that is a plus. You don't have to have air assist. You don't have to have a honeycomb board, but if you happen to have them, use them. The air assist will reduce the scorching on the top side. It'll also assist with the cutting. So let me get this laid out on the laser here, and then we'll do some framing. Okay, I'm going to show you where to get some free files for laser cutting. And you do not have to have a membership there. I do, but you do not have to have one. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not promoting them. This is just a place where I get a lot of our graphics. So if you go here to free designs, come down here to free laser files. There's all kinds of things you can pick from. And this is actually different than what I looked at yesterday. As you can see here, there's all kinds of things you can pick from here. What we're going to be doing is making some ornaments, like what we see right here, and I've already downloaded this, and I have unzipped it. So now we'll move over to light burn. So I need to pick the right laser, of course. And we're using the xTool D1. Now we're going to have to create a tool path here when we bring these in so we can get everything within our work. If you have one of these circles like I showed at the beginning, that's 11.75 inches in diameter. So to get a tool path for that, you click on your little circle there. And we want this to be 11.75. And 11.75. Now we have a circle, and I can click my padlock shut again. If you leave the padlock shut and only change one side, you'll end up with an ellipse or something else strange. So now, go back up here and click this little arrow that selects that. That is now our toolpath. So everything that we do, we need to have inside that circle. And I am working from what they call absolute coordinates over here, you can see. If you are working with a laser that does not have limit switches, I suggest you use current position, and then you can position your laser head in the center of your work. I always operate from center, but in this case, since I have limit switches, I'm going to be using current position. So now I need to bring in my graphics. Right up here to this little guy, import. And I'm going to be importing these Christmas ornaments. As you can see, that's not going to fit on there. So what we need to do first here is change that layer so it's not the same as the toolpath. And we go up here to this little guy and ungroup the selection. So we can take some of these off of there, which may have to be cut on another piece. So we can select those and just delete them. Now the question is, will these fit on here? Just barely. But they do fit. Might make a little adjustment down here, select these one at a time, move them around a little bit. So I'll just nudge this one over a little bit. That's a little too close to the edge. Then I can select this one here, nudge him over just a little bit. Whoops. I didn't get the whole thing selected. Now we can nudge him over. I'll select this one. I could do some other rearranging here to keep that away from those edges. Yeah, I might do that. So I'm going to reselect this. Ungroup it again. Now I'm going to select this one here. Didn't get it all. I'm going to move him up. I'm going to select this one here at the bottom. Move him down. And now I can move him in a little bit. Move this guy over here. Move him in a little bit. I'm just trying to stay away from the very edge. Move him in a little bit. And that one down there looks fine. So now I can regroup these. And I can proceed to frame my work. Of course, since we have a round toolpath, we want to frame round. When you lay out your work piece, kind of keep in mind where the holes are that the strings were in, and try to make sure they don't end up in one of your pieces that you're going to be cutting out. Try to keep that to the area where the scrap's going to be, and I think I've got it laid out good that way. So what we need to do now is frame this, but we're going to frame it in a circle, not the square, because our toolpath is round. So bring this in, and you're going to have to watch the cursor, that's that red cross if you're using a D1, and have it follow exactly on the outside, right on the edge of your workpiece. Boy, did I get lucky here or what? And I'm off by just a hair. I'll have to move it to the upper right, just an eighth of an inch or so. Okay, I gotta adjust my piece just by a hair, and then I'll frame it again, and then we'll get going on this. Hit start. And away we go. And it looks like I need to open the door and get some of the smoke out of here. And it's a little cool out there, so I won't be keeping it open very long. This really should be in an enclosure with an exhaust fan on it. But then you wouldn't be able to see what I was doing here. And again, I am using a honeycomb board. You don't have to have one. And I am using air assist. You don't have to have it. But both of those help greatly when you're doing cutting. Okay, while that's cutting, I want to point out a couple other things, especially if you're new to using a laser. Even though that does have a shield on it, and if you're new to this, you're going to want to watch that. I know you are, because I did when I first started out, and I still watch some of them closely if it's a precision project. Wear your safety glasses or your goggles. I don't have them on right now because the laser's working over there and I'm not looking at it. Something else you need to have, and they're not expensive, is one of these. Fire extinguisher. I have one here. I have one on the other side of the shop. We have one over on the other side from where we ship from, and we also have one upstairs in the loft in the laser room up there. So they're like 15 bucks. I mean, that's cheap insurance. If something happens, and it can, you know, things happen, having that fire extinguisher right there could save you a whole lot of damage. And speaking of safety, and if you have kids around or you have dogs or cats or some type of pet, do not use a laser around them because they will want to stare at that laser beam and that will hurt their eyes. Even with the shield on, if they stare at that too long or if they manage to look around the shield, it's going to damage their eyes. So keep kids away. Next safety tip, don't leave it unattended. That doesn't mean you have to stand right there and watch it, but be in the same general area in case something goes wrong. And I've had things go wrong before where maybe it'll just stop. Most of the lasers I use have protection on them. If something gets tilted or if there is a flame, it'll shut down. If the laser goes to one point and just stays there too long, it'll shut down. But not every laser has that feature. So you want to keep into the area so if something does go wrong, you can be there to take care of it. So as you can see, our first one is cut out and it's progressing on to the second one, and I see where I thought I missed that string hole. I guess I didn't miss it, so oh well. I'll just use that one for some other kind of decoration. Hopefully the other string hole will miss. And these shapes of wood, this is the round one like we're using, and there's a snowflake, and then there's that other ornament looking thing, and there's hearts and stars, and it's all kinds of different shapes. They're $1.25. They're just a fantastic thing to practice with your laser without spending a whole lot of money. Most of them are 2 millimeters thick, but I do suggest you invest in a digital caliper so you can measure the thickness, or you could use a micrometer if you wanted to, if you know how to use one. Even one from Harbor Freight, that's Harbor Freight, they're $15, I think. Digital caliper works just fine. The only thing you have to do is, remember, if you're going to keep it in the case with the lid shut, take battery out. Because when you close the case, the foam in there will turn the caliper on and run battery down. And you're probably going to read that in reviews if you look on their website at their digital caliper. That's kind of a flaw they have with their case. Or you could cut that foam out on the top side where the buttons are so it doesn't do that. So what do you do if you get one of these and it appeared flat at the store, but you get it home and the weather or humidity or something else has made it warp, like this one here is? There's a couple different ways you can flatten that out. One of them is if you have a steam iron, you know, like you iron clothes with. Steam iron both sides of it. Lay a few sheets of newspaper down, or paper like grocery bag. I'm mentioning things that younger people may not even know what they are. But brown paper bags were common when I was a kid. And in certain places you can still get them. But you need to have some layers of paper underneath, and then take some layers of paper and put on top. Put it on a very hard, flat surface, and put something very heavy on top. A cement block works perfect. Leave it set overnight, and the paper should draw the moisture out that you just put in there from the steam iron, and when you take that out, it should be flat. That works most of the time. Not every time, but it works most of the time. Okay, while this is cutting, and yes, it's getting smoky in here again, I'm going to have to go open the door again for a minute soon, but I want to talk a little bit about this xTool D1 laser. This is the 10 watt model. They also have a 20 watt model. I don't have that, but I do have two of these. And why do I have two of them? Well, one of them I use with risers and use on a rotary. However, I also use it for cutting. It also has air assist. And I did a video here just a little while back on why I use the xTool D1s for all my cutting jobs. Is because it is just so easy to lay out. They have limit switches. It has a homing function. I can work from absolute coordinates very easily. I can lay my work out very easily. It's well constructed and it's accurate. Now, yeah, that kind of sounds like a commercial for it, but that's why I use the D1 for all my cutting projects. Something else I'll mention here is as you're watching this cut, and keep your safety glasses on when you're doing it, even though it's got a shield, you should be able to see the pieces. If you are using a honeycomb board, they will drop out a little bit after they cut through, which is a good indication that you're getting a good cut. If you have up on a what they call a nail bed, which is a bunch of little prongs sticking up, you'll probably see the smaller pieces drop out. If you're on a flat surface, it's going to be a little bit tougher to tell if they're dropped out or not. Of course, once the project starts, if it's not cutting all the way through, you can run another pass as long as you do not move your part. Don't move your material if you're going to do another pass. Which brings up something else. If you remember, when we were doing the layout, there was an area in the center where there wasn't anything. I'm going to take one of these ornament patterns here, and we're going to shrink it down, and we're going to put it over into that spot. And without moving this material project at all, we're going to go back, make that a different layer, and cut that out right in the center. That'll be coming up after this here finishes up. Okay, so our cutting is finished on our first batch here. So we have this space right here in the center. So I'm going to select everything here again. Now I'm going to ungroup it. And now I'm going to grab just one of these. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to do Control C here, copy it. Now I'm going to come out here and do a Control V and paste it. Now I need to group that piece so that it doesn't come apart when I move it around. So is that going to fit up here? Well, not really. Maybe if we rotate it a little bit, we could get it in there. Take this out. A little rotation here. Place that carefully. You can see that that now clears everything else, and we can cut out one more out of there. So what we need to do though is make this a different layer. So I'm just going to we'll grab this one here. So now that's going to be our brown layer, or purple, or layer 18, C18. Line, need to change that speed to 250, 80%. Now up here we need to go to output and turn the first one off. So now all we're going to do is cut that one right there in the center. So all I need to do now is hit start, and that'll send it to the laser and it'll cut out that one right in the middle. Okay, now all I need to do is hit start. And we're going to cut out that sixth ornament. It'll be right in the middle. I guess it'll be the seventh one. You need to learn how to count. This will make the best use of your material. There's something else you can do with the little spaces that are around if you have some little parts you want to cut out. Saving these scraps is a good way to use up all them little spaces. For example, if you were going to want to make a little seahorse, there's places on here you could cut that out of. Okay, we're all cut out, so I'm going to send the laser home. That'll get it out of the way. So we can pick this up and everything should drop right out. And there's our scrap there. So now you got all these pieces here. You need to poke out the other parts that were cut. And if you should happen to get one where a whisker is holding it, like this one here was, sometimes you can just bend it a little bit and those will come right out. Other times you may have to mess with it a little bit. Handy little thing here. This comes from Harbor Freight. It's a little pick set. It's good for poking out little pieces. So you got a little whisker on there, but I can trim that off with an X-Acto knife. See, plywood can be fickle. You'll see other parts of this, everything will have cut just perfect. Other places you get these little whiskers. With their X-Acto knife, you can cut them right out. Sometimes you can take them and just smack them on your hand, and pieces will come out. And the ones that don't, you just have to give them a little poke. Now, here's a good example of plywood being fickle. You can see here where a lot of these here did not cut through because of the way the grain was. That is not all that uncommon. That happens quite a bit. So you can go take an X-Acto knife and just trace those lines, and then your pieces will fall out. You see here on this, and this is all on the same sheet of material, you get these differing areas in there. Now here in this bottom piece, I'm going to have to trim that on the back side. So I have just this one little piece here where I'm going to need to trim this grain on that one. See, then you'll have other ones where everything just comes out perfect. It's not uncommon to have fickle plywood like that. But for $1.25 a sheet, there's a snowflake. Another type of snowflake here. Sometimes these will just fall right out, and sometimes you gotta give them a little poke. Another snowflake. And here's yet another one, and this is where I thought my existing string hole would have missed the ornament, but I was off by just a little bit. There's another snowflake. Of course, I got this bell I need to do a little trimming here on. So there's our 7 ornaments out of that $1.25 piece of wood from Dollar Tree. And if you are using a honeycomb board, there will be no scorching on the back side. And if you're using air assist, you probably won't have any scorching on the top side. There again, you don't have to have that. If you do have some scorching, you can take some light, like 220 sandpaper, it'll sand off pretty easy. And if you're going to paint it, then that doesn't really matter. So these can either be used as is, or they could be painted. There's also a secondary product out of this particular process. These little stars, which were cut out on these ornaments, can be used on something else. If you have another project where you may want to have some little wooden stars, you'll have some. So there is a fairly simple project for if you're just getting into laser cutting, and other than a $1.25 piece of wood, it didn't really cost you anything. The graphics are free. I showed you where to download those from. And there's, if you don't want this particular style, there's some other ones there that are also free. If you wish to subscribe to design bundles, you can, or you can get into their other graphics and just buy them individually. You don't have to have a membership. As I said, I belong to it because we use so many of their graphics in so many different projects we do, not only in lasers, but with sublimation and some of the other craft things we do. So this was showing how to do it on the xTool D1. It's a 10-watt laser, as I mentioned. The same principle holds true on any 10-watt laser. With the same settings should work. Again, if your laser does not have limit switches and a homing function and all that, you're better off working from current position than to try to use absolute coordinates. And if you're really confused about Lightburn and you want to learn more about it, you can either go on Lightburn's website. They have some YouTube videos you can watch to learn how to use it. If you really want to get in depth on it, watch the Lightburn videos from the Louisiana Hobby Guy on YouTube. Rich has just done a fantastic job with teaching how to do this, how to work with it step by step. He does a great job with it. So for that reason, I have no intentions of even trying to duplicate his work. So also, xTool I know is having a sale here in December, and there'll be links in the description. And they've got some great specials on not only the D1 10-watt, but the D1 20-watt. And some of their other products, you know, the honeycomb boards and air assist, and just all kinds of stuff. So you want to check them out. And you'll also want to check out my previous video I did on why I use the xTool D1s for cutting, because I've got a little excerpt in there on the F1 laser. It's a Galvo laser that xTool is coming out with sometime in 2023, and I can't hardly wait to get my hands on one of those to play with it. So I've always wanted to play with a Galvo laser. If you don't know what a Galvo laser is, watch that video. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up, always helps the channel. And of course, we're always looking for subscribers. I'm Roger in the shop. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.